Dear Diary, they say revenge is a dish best served cold, but mine was served with a warm smile, a gentle voice, and the perfect disguise of innocence. My name is Emma Grace, and tonight, as I stood at the doorstep of the Montgomery house, my heart wasn't racing with nervousness like a typical first-time babysitter. No, it was pounding with purpose, with years of buried rage, with a secret so dark that if little Lily's mother knew the truth, she would never have opened that door. But she did. You must be Emma. Victoria Montgomery beamed at me, her perfectly white teeth gleaming under the porch light. She was exactly as I remembered. Blonde highlights, designer handbag, that air of superiority that came with old money. She looked right through me, just like she had 5 years ago. She didn't recognize me. Why would she? The last time she saw me I was 14 years old, sobbing in a hospital corridor while my little brother took his last breath. Yes, Mrs. Montgomery, thank you so much for this opportunity. I kept my voice sweet, eager. The perfect college student trying to make extra money. That's what my resume said. That's what she believed. Please, call me Victoria. She ushered me inside, her heels clicking on the marble floor. Lily's upstairs. She's 6, full of energy, but an absolute angel once she warms up to you. An angel? The word tasted bitter in my mouth. Victoria Montgomery knew nothing about angels. She knew nothing about the angel she took from me. The house was exactly as I'd imagined it would be. Sprawling, pristine, filled with expensive furniture that screamed wealth. Family photos lined the hallway. Victoria and her husband, Robert, at various charity galas. Lily at different ages, always smiling, always loved, always alive. My brother David never got past 14. He never got to smile in family photos as a teenager. He never got to graduate, fall in love, or live the life he deserved. And it was all because of the woman now showing me where the emergency contacts were posted on the refrigerator. Robert and I will be at the governor's gala until around midnight, Victoria continued, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror and adjusting her diamond earrings. Lily's bedtime is 8:30. She's had dinner, but there are snacks in the pantry if she gets hungry. The Wi-Fi password is on the counter. I nodded, making mental notes, playing my role perfectly. Does she have any allergies I should know about? No, thankfully, Victoria smiled. She's a healthy little girl. We're very blessed. Blessed. The word echoed in my head like a cruel joke. They were blessed while my mother spent every day visiting a grave, while my father drank himself into silence, while I spent 5 years planning this moment. Lily, come meet Emma! Victoria called up the stairs. I heard the patter of small feet, and then she appeared. Lily Montgomery, 6 years old, with her mother's blonde hair and bright blue eyes. She wore pink pajamas with cartoon unicorns, and she clutched a stuffed rabbit to her chest. She looked at me with innocent curiosity, and for a split second my resolve wavered. She was just a child, an innocent child, but so was David. Hi, Lily. I knelt down to her level, smiling warmly. I'm Emma. I'm going to hang out with you tonight while your mom and dad go to their party. Does that sound okay? Lily nodded slowly, still sizing me up with those wide blue eyes. She might be shy at first, Victoria said, grabbing her clutch from the console table. But she'll warm up. Won't you, sweetheart? Mummy, do you have to go? Lily's voice was small, uncertain. Victoria's face softened, and she bent down to kiss her daughter's forehead. Just for a few hours, baby. Emma's going to take great care of you. And when you wake up tomorrow, Daddy and I will be here, and we'll make pancakes together. Okay? Lily nodded, though her grip on the stuffed rabbit tightened. Robert Montgomery appeared then, adjusting his cufflinks. He was tall, distinguished, with greying temples and an expensive suit. He barely glanced at me as he put his hand on Victoria's lower back. Ready, darling? We're already running late. Yes, yes. Victoria straightened, giving me one last instruction-filled look. You have my cell number. Don't hesitate to call if you need anything. We'll be just fine, I assured her, my hand resting gently on Lily's shoulder. And then they were gone. The door closed with a soft click, and suddenly it was just me and the daughter of the woman who destroyed my family. The house fell quiet except for the ticking of an antique clock somewhere in the living room. Lily looked up at me, her eyes searching my face for reassurance. "So," I said brightly, pushing my dark thoughts aside for now, "what do you want to do first? Do you like games?" She nodded, a small smile forming. "Perfect. I know some really fun games." I took her small hand in mine and she led me toward the playroom. As we walked, I noticed more photos on the walls. Victoria receiving an award. Victoria at a ribbon-cutting ceremony. Victoria Montgomery, respected philanthropist, community leader, beloved mother. Victoria Montgomery, hit-and-run driver who left a 14-year-old boy bleeding on the pavement and never looked back. The police never found who did it. The case went cold after 6 months. But I knew. I had always known. I was there that night, walking home with David after his basketball practice. I saw the black Mercedes with the vanity plate. I saw it swerve, saw it hit my brother, saw it speed away without stopping. And when I reported the plate number, the police investigated and came back, saying the car had been reported stolen that night, conveniently returned to the Montgomery driveway by morning with a single dent that was being repaired. Money bought silence. Money bought alibis. Money bought justice denied. But tonight, 5 years of careful planning would finally pay off. The playroom was exactly what you'd expect from a family with unlimited resources. A wonderland of toys, books, and games that most children could only dream about. A miniature kitchen set sat in one corner, complete with plastic food and tiny dishes. Shelves lined the walls, overflowing with dolls, puzzles, and board games, still in their pristine packaging. A large toy chest sat open, revealing stuffed animals of every size and colour. Lily seemed to relax a bit now that we were in her territory. She released my hand and walked over to a dollhouse that was nearly as tall as she was. "This is my favourite," she said softly, her voice gaining confidence. "Mummy got it for my birthday." "It's beautiful," I said, and I meant it. The dollhouse was an architectural masterpiece in miniature, 3 stories, fully furnished with tiny working lights. It probably cost more than my family's monthly rent. I sat down on the plush carpet beside her, watching as she carefully arranged the tiny furniture. Her movements were gentle, deliberate. She told me stories about the doll family who lived there. The mummy, the daddy, the little girl, and the baby brother. A baby brother. My chest tightened. "Do you have any brothers or sisters?" Lily asked innocently, positioning the father doll in the dining room. The question hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral. "I had a brother," I said quietly, "but he's not here anymore." Lily looked up at me with those big blue eyes, wisdom beyond her years flickering in them. "Did he go to heaven?" "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, he did. I'm sorry," she said with such genuine sympathy that I had to look away. "That must make you very sad." If only she knew. If only she understood that her mother was the reason my brother was in heaven. That her mother's recklessness, her cowardice, her willingness to cover up her crime had orphaned my parents of their only son. "It does make me sad," I admitted, my voice thick. "But you know what? Playing with nice kids like you helps me feel a little better." Lily smiled at that, and something inside me cracked. She was so innocent, so pure. She had no idea what her mother had done. She was just a child who loved her parents and probably thought they were perfect. Just like I used to think mine were perfect before Victoria Montgomery shattered our world. We played for a while longer, Lily's guard completely down now. She showed me her favourite books, her collection of hair ribbons, her secret hiding spot behind the couch where she went when she wanted to be alone. She chatted about her day at school, about her best friend Jessica, about how she wanted to be a veterinarian when she grew up, because she loved animals. She was a sweet kid. Any other babysitter would be charmed, but I wasn't any other babysitter. At 8 o'clock, I suggested we watch a movie before bed. Lily's face lit up, and she ran to the living room, selecting an animated film about a princess and her dragon. We settled onto the enormous sectional couch, and Lily curled up beside me, her stuffed rabbit tucked under her arm. As the movie played, I felt her head grow heavy against my shoulder. Her breathing slowed, deepened. She was falling asleep, even though it wasn't quite bedtime yet. The busy day at school must have tired her out more than she realised. This was my moment. I carefully extracted myself from the couch, making sure not to wake her. She stirred slightly, but didn't open her eyes, just clutched her rabbit tighter and rolled onto her side. My heart was racing now, but not with guilt, with purpose, with the knowledge that what I was about to do had been 5 years in the making. I walked to the kitchen, my footsteps silent on the expensive hardwood floors. Everything in this house spoke of comfort, security, and privilege. The Montgomerys wanted for nothing. They had everything: their health, their wealth, their perfect daughter, their pristine reputation, while my family had nothing but grief and unanswered questions. I opened the refrigerator, scanning the contents. Organic milk, fresh fruits, imported cheeses, leftover gourmet pasta. On the top shelf sat a bottle of Victoria's favourite wine. I knew this because I'd done my research. I'd spent months learning everything about this family, their routines, their preferences, their secrets, and they had plenty of secrets. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small vial. The liquid inside was clear, tasteless, odourless. It had taken me 8 months to cultivate the relationship with the pharmacy tech who could get me what I needed. Another 4 months to save the money to pay for it. Not poison, nothing so crude or traceable, but something that would make Victoria very, very sick. Sick enough to be hospitalised, sick enough to be scared, sick enough to feel a fraction of what my family felt. My hand trembled slightly as I uncapped the vial. This was it, the point of no return. Once I did this, there would be no going back. Victoria would drink the wine, probably tomorrow night after another exhausting day of pretending to be perfect. She would become ill within hours. The doctors would run tests, find traces of something suspicious. An investigation would begin, and I would be long gone. My babysitting job completed, my references checked, my background clean. Just another college student who needed the money. I held the vial over the wine bottle. Then I heard a sound behind me. I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. Lily stood in the kitchen doorway, rubbing her eyes sleepily. "Emma." Her voice was small, confused. "What are you doing?" Time seemed to freeze. The vial felt heavy in my hand, burning like a brand. I quickly closed my fist around it, hiding it from view. "Hey, sweetheart," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "You woke up. Are you thirsty? I was just getting some water." Lily nodded, still half asleep. "Can I have juice?" "Of course." I set the vial down behind the coffee maker, out of her line of sight, and grabbed the apple juice from the refrigerator. My hands were steady as I poured it into a cup with a cartoon princess on it, but inside I was screaming. She had seen me. Had she seen the vial? Did she understand what I was doing? I handed her the juice, and she drank it slowly, her eyes already drooping again. "Come on, let's get you to bed properly," I said gently, taking her hand. She didn't resist, just followed me up the stairs to her bedroom. It was a fantasy land of pink and purple, with constellation stickers on the ceiling and a canopy bed fit for royalty. I helped her climb under the covers, tucking her in the way my mother used to tuck David in. The memory stung. "Emma?" Lily's voice was barely a whisper. "Yes, honey. Will you stay until I fall asleep? Mummy always stays." Her request was so simple, so innocent. She trusted me completely. This little girl whose mother had killed my brother trusted me to keep her safe. "Of course I will," I heard myself say. I sat on the edge of her bed, and she reached for my hand. Her small fingers wrapped around mine, warm and trusting. I began to hum a lullaby, the same one my mother used to sing to David. Within minutes, Lily was asleep, her breathing soft and even. But I stayed there, watching her peaceful face in the dim glow of her nightlight, and something inside me began to unravel. What was I doing? Was this justice or just revenge? Would poisoning Victoria bring David back? Would it heal my family or just create another broken one? I sat in Lily's room for what felt like hours, but was probably only 20 minutes. The nightlight cast soft shadows on the walls, and I watched the gentle rise and fall of her chest as she slept. She looked so peaceful, so innocent. Her stuffed rabbit was tucked under one arm, and occasionally she would make small sounds in her sleep. soft murmurs that sounded almost like words. This is what David must have looked like when he slept. Peaceful, innocent, unaware that his life would be cut short by someone's carelessness and cowardice. I carefully extracted my hand from Lily's grip and stood up. My legs felt unsteady as I walked out of her room, leaving the door slightly ajar so I could hear her if she woke. The hallway seemed longer on the way back, the family photos on the walls watching me with accusing eyes. When I reached the kitchen, I stood there for a long moment, staring at the coffee maker where I'd hidden the vial. The refrigerator hummed softly. The clock ticked. Somewhere in the house, the heating system clicked on. Everything felt surreal, like I was watching myself from outside my body. I reached behind the coffee maker and picked up the vial, holding it up to the light. Such a small thing, such a small amount of liquid, but enough to accomplish what I'd set out to do. Or was it? I sank into one of the kitchen chairs, the vial clutched in my hand. 5 years. 5 years of pain and planning had led to this moment. 5 years of watching my mother cry herself to sleep. 5 years of my father's silence, his spirit broken. 5 years of visiting David's grave every Sunday, talking to a headstone because that's all I had left of my little brother. David had been so full of life. He loved basketball, terrible action movies, and making terrible jokes that always made me laugh. He used to leave notes in my backpack. Stupid things like, "You're the best sister ever," or "Don't forget, you're awesome." I found one 3 months after he died, crumpled in the bottom of a pocket. I still carried it in my wallet. Victoria Montgomery took all of that away. She took away his future, his dreams, his stupid jokes. She took away the sound of his laugh and the warmth of his hugs. And then she went on, living her perfect life as if nothing had happened. As if a boy wasn't dead because she couldn't be bothered to stop, to call for help, to face what she'd done. I wanted her to suffer. I wanted her to feel even a fraction of the pain she'd caused. But as I sat there in her kitchen, in her perfect house, with her innocent daughter sleeping upstairs, I realised something that made my chest ache with a new kind of pain. This wasn't justice. This was just more pain, more suffering, more lives destroyed. If I did this, Lily would lose her mother. Maybe not permanently, but she would watch Victoria suffer, would see her weak and sick and scared. Lily would carry that trauma just like I carried mine. And what would that solve? Would David come back? Would my family heal? Or would I just be creating another Emma, another broken person planning revenge in 5 years? My phone buzzed, making me jump. It was a text from my mother. "Hope the babysitting job is going well, sweetheart. Love you." I stared at the message, tears blurring my vision. My mother. She had been through hell, but she had never once talked about revenge. She had never once said she wanted Victoria Montgomery to suffer. She just grieved quietly, painfully, with a grace I didn't understand. "I can't hate her," she had told me once, about 6 months after David died. "Hate won't bring him back. It'll just eat me alive from the inside." I had been angry at her then. How could she not hate the person who killed her son? How could she not want revenge? But maybe she understood something I didn't. Maybe she knew that revenge was just another form of poison, one that hurt the person carrying it more than anyone else. I looked at the vial again. Then, before I could change my mind, I walked to the kitchen sink and poured it out. The liquid swirled down the drain, gone forever. I rinsed the vial, threw it in my bag, and stood there gripping the edge of the sink, my whole body shaking. What had I almost done? I washed my face with cold water, trying to pull myself together. I needed to finish this job, collect my payment, and never come back to this house. I needed to find another way to get justice, the right way, the legal way. Or maybe I just needed to find a way to heal. I checked on Lily, still sleeping peacefully, and then went downstairs to clean up. I put away the juice cup, straightened the playroom, and tried to make everything look normal. Like I was just a regular babysitter doing a regular job. But I wasn't, and I never would be. At 11:45, I heard a car pull into the driveway. My heart started racing again, but for a different reason. I grabbed my bag, checked my reflection in the hallway mirror. I looked tired, but normal. just a college student finishing a babysitting job. The front door opened and Victoria walked in, followed by Robert. She was laughing at something he had said, her face flushed with champagne and happiness. "Emma, how was everything?" She set her clutch on the console table and kicked off her heels with a sigh of relief. "Great," I said, my voice steadier than I expected. "Lily was wonderful. We played, watched a movie, and she went to bed around 8:30. She woke up once, asking for juice, but went right back to sleep." "Perfect." Victoria smiled, reaching for her purse. "You're a natural. I'd love to have you back again next week if you're available." Next week. Another opportunity to be in this house, around this family. Another opportunity to... Actually, I heard myself say, "I don't think I can. My schedule is getting pretty busy with school." It was a lie, but a necessary one. I couldn't come back here. I couldn't be around Lily, couldn't risk getting attached to her, couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. "Oh, that's too bad," Victoria said, looking genuinely disappointed. "Well, here's for tonight." She handed me an envelope, probably more than I would have made anywhere else. Victoria Montgomery was generous with money, just not with accountability. "Thank you," I said, taking it. "Lily's a sweet girl, you're very lucky." Something flickered across Victoria's face then. A shadow, a moment of something that almost looked like guilt. But it passed so quickly I might have imagined it. "We are," she said softly. "Very lucky indeed." I said goodbye to Robert, who barely looked up from his phone, and headed for the door. Victoria walked me out, and as I stood on the porch, she touched my arm gently. "Emma, are you okay? You seem, I don't know, sad." For a moment, I considered telling her everything. I considered looking her in the eyes and saying, "You killed my brother 5 years ago and you never stopped to help him, and you've been living your perfect life while my family fell apart." But instead I just smiled. "I'm fine, just tired. It's been a long day." She nodded, accepting the lie. "Drive safe." "I will." As I walked to my car, I heard the door close behind me. I sat in the driver's seat for a long moment, not starting the engine, just staring at the Montgomery house with all its lights and warmth. I had come here planning to hurt Victoria Montgomery, but I was leaving with something else entirely, the understanding that revenge wouldn't fix anything. It wouldn't bring David back. It wouldn't heal my family. It would just create more pain, more trauma, more people carrying dark secrets and planning revenge. The drive home was a blur of streetlights and silent tears. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly, my knuckles turned white, and I had to pull over twice, because I couldn't see through the water filling my eyes. When I finally reached my apartment, a tiny studio, in a not-so-great part of town, it was past midnight. I sat on my bed in the dark, still wearing my babysitting clothes, still carrying the weight of what I'd almost done. The envelope Victoria had given me sat on my nightstand, unopened. Blood money, I thought bitterly, though not in the way she knew. My phone buzzed again. Another text from my mother. "Getting late. You okay?" I typed back. "Just got home. Everything's fine. Going to bed. Love you." But nothing was fine. Everything was complicated and messy and wrong in ways I didn't know how to fix. I pulled out my laptop and did something I'd avoided for 5 years. I searched for David's accident again. The news articles came up. Same as always. Hit and run leaves teen in critical condition. Family searches for answers in fatal accident. Police seek information on black Mercedes. And then, buried deeper in the search results, something I'd never seen before. An article from 2 years ago. Local philanthropist Victoria Montgomery sponsors safe driving campaign in memory of traffic victims. My blood ran cold as I clicked the link. There was Victoria, standing at a podium, announcing a scholarship fund for families affected by traffic accidents. The article talked about her passion for road safety and her commitment to preventing future tragedies. There were photos of her at various events, speaking to groups, cutting ribbons at crosswalk installations. She was using traffic safety as her cause. The irony would be laughable if it wasn't so grotesque. But then I kept reading. Mrs. Montgomery, whose involvement in traffic safety advocacy began after a personal experience she declines to discuss in detail, has raised over $200,000 for victim support services, a personal experience she declines to discuss. I clicked through to more articles, following the trail of Victoria's advocacy work, interviews, speeches, fundraisers, and in one interview from 18 months ago, I found something that made my heart stop. The interviewer had asked Victoria why she was so passionate about this cause. Her answer partially quoted, "Because I know what it's like to carry guilt you can't escape, because some mistakes can never be undone, only atoned for in whatever way possible." I read it 3 times, trying to understand what I was seeing. Victoria knew. She had always known. The hit and run wasn't some drunken mistake she'd blocked from memory. She knew she'd hit David. She knew she'd left him there. And for 5 years, she'd been trying to atone for it. Not through confession or facing justice, but through charitable work and advocacy. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. No amount of money or campaigns could bring David back. But it meant something. It meant she wasn't the heartless monster I'd built up in my mind. She was just a coward. A guilty coward trying to buy her way out of hell. I spent the rest of that night digging deeper into Victoria's advocacy work. The scholarship fund had helped 15 families. The crosswalk installations had been placed in high accident areas, probably saving lives. The safe driving campaign had reached thousands of teenagers. David's death had, in a twisted way, led to something that might prevent other deaths. I hated that realization. I hated that Victoria's guilt had produced something positive, because it complicated everything. It made her human instead of a villain, and I didn't want her to be human. I wanted her to be simple, easy to hate, deserving of revenge. But life wasn't that simple. As dawn broke, I finally closed my laptop and lay back on my bed, exhausted but unable to sleep. My phone buzzed one more time. A message from an unknown number. "Hi Emma, this is Victoria Montgomery. I hope you don't mind. I got your number from your application. I wanted to thank you again for tonight. Lily really liked you. She told me this morning that you made her feel safe. I know you said your schedule is busy, but if you ever have time again, we'd love to have you back. Take care." I stared at the message for a long time. Lily had felt safe with me, even though I had come into her home planning to hurt her mother, even though I had carried poison and dark intentions. That innocent little girl had trusted me completely, and I had almost betrayed that trust in the worst way. I thought about texting back, but I didn't know what to say. Instead, I got up and pulled out the box I kept under my bed, the one filled with David's things. Photos, his basketball jersey, the stupid notes he used to leave me. I sat there on my floor, surrounded by memories of my brother, and I cried. I cried for David. I cried for my parents. I cried for the 5 years I'd spent consumed by rage and plans for revenge. I cried for Lily, who had no idea how close she'd come to losing her mother. And in a strange way, I cried for Victoria too, trapped in her own prison of guilt, trying to atone for something she could never undo. When I finally stopped crying, the sun was fully up. I felt hollow, but also lighter somehow, like I'd purged something toxic from my system. I picked up my phone and called my mother. "Emma, sweetheart, it's early. Are you okay?" Her voice, worried, loving, exhausted, broke something open inside me. "Mum," I said, my voice cracking, "I need to tell you something. I need to tell you what I almost did." And I told her everything. About finding Victoria's identity years ago, about planning revenge, about getting the babysitting job, about the vial and how close I'd come to using it, about Lily's innocent face and the moment I'd poured the poison down the drain. My mother was quiet for a long time after I finished. So quiet. I thought she might have hung up. "Mom? I'm here, baby." Her voice was thick with emotion. I'm trying to find the right words." "I'm sorry," I whispered. "I'm so sorry. I know I disappointed you. I know David would be disappointed too. I didn't know how else to make the pain stop." "Oh, Emma." I heard her sniffle, heard her trying to compose herself. "You didn't disappoint me. You stopped yourself. That's what matters. You chose not to hurt her." "But I wanted to. I wanted to so badly." "I know," she said softly. "And And that's human. That's grief. I've wanted to hurt her too, in my darkest moments. Your father has too. We've all imagined justice in all its forms. But sweetie, you have to understand something. What? Revenge wouldn't have brought him back, and it wouldn't have made you feel better. Not really. It would have just made you like her, someone running from guilt, trying to atone for something that can't be undone. Her words hit me like a physical force. She was right. If I'd gone through with it, I would have become exactly what I hated. A person who hurt someone and then spent the rest of their life trying to justify it. After I hung up with my mother, I spent the day in a strange limbo. I couldn't sleep despite being exhausted. I couldn't eat despite not having eaten since yesterday afternoon. I just sat in my apartment, replaying the previous night over and over in my mind. Around noon, my phone rang. Unknown number again. I hesitated, then answered. Hello? Emma? This is Robert Montgomery. His voice was formal, businesslike. My heart immediately started racing. Did he know? Had Lily said something? Had Victoria figured it out? Oh, hello, Mr. Montgomery. I apologise for calling on a Sunday, but I wanted to reach out personally. He paused, and I heard papers shuffling in the background. I'm a lawyer, as you might know, and I recently took on a pro bono case that's quite time-consuming. We need someone to look after Lily on a more regular basis, perhaps 3 evenings a week. Victoria mentioned you were busy with school, but the pay would be substantial, and we could work around your schedule. I should have said no immediately. I should have made up an excuse and never spoken to the Montgomerys again. But instead, I heard myself ask, what kind of case? I'm sorry, the pro bono case, what kind is it? There was a pause. It's a wrongful death case, a traffic accident. The victim's family never got proper closure, and I'm helping them pursue it. Why do you ask? The irony was so sharp it almost made me laugh. Robert Montgomery, criminal defense attorney, was working on a traffic accident case. Did he know about his wife's hit and run? Or was this his own form of unconscious atonement? Just curious, I said carefully. That sounds like important work. It is. These cases are complicated proving fault, especially years after the fact. But the family deserves answers. He sighed. Anyway, about Lily. Can we count on you? I should have said no. Every logical part of my brain was screaming at me to cut ties with this family and never look back. But another part, the part that had seen Lily's innocent face, that had felt her small hand in mine, couldn't let go so easily. Can I think about it? I asked. Maybe I could do 1 or 2 evenings a week. That would be wonderful. Victoria will be so pleased. She really likes you, Emma. She said there's something genuine about you. Genuine? If only he knew. After we hung up, I paced my apartment for an hour, trying to figure out what I was doing. Why was I considering going back? What possible good could come from staying involved with this family? But the answer kept coming back to Lily. Sweet, innocent Lily who had no idea what her mother had done, who would grow up loved and sheltered and protected, while David's memory faded with each passing year. Maybe that was it. Maybe, by being around Lily, I could keep David's memory alive somehow. Maybe I could make sure at least one child grew up safe and loved, even if it couldn't be my brother. Or maybe I was just making excuses because I wasn't ready to let go of my connection to Victoria Montgomery. I decided to visit David's grave. I hadn't been since last Sunday, and I needed to talk to him. I needed his guidance, even if it could only come from my own heart. The cemetery was quiet on Sunday afternoon. A few other visitors dotted the landscape, but mostly it was just me and the endless rows of headstones. David's was in the newer section, under an oak tree that provided shade in summer. My parents had chosen a simple granite marker with his name, dates, and the words, "Beloved son and brother, gone too soon." I sat down on the grass next to his grave, running my fingers over the engraved letters. "Hey, David," I said softly. "I'm sorry I haven't been here this week. I've been busy, doing something stupid actually, something you would have talked me out of if you were here." A breeze rustled through the oak tree, and I imagined it was his way of listening. "I found her, David, the woman who hit you. I've known for a couple years now actually, but I finally did something about it. I got a job babysitting her daughter. I paused, swallowing hard. And I almost hurt her. I almost poisoned her. Can you believe that? Your sister, who used to cry when she accidentally stepped on ants, almost poisoned someone. The breeze continued, neither condemning nor forgiving. But I didn't do it. I couldn't, because her daughter was sleeping upstairs, and she looked so peaceful, and I couldn't make another kid lose someone they love, even if that someone is the person who took you from us. I pulled up a few weeds that had started growing around his headstone, needing something to do with my hands. Mum says you'd be proud of me for stopping, but I don't know, David. I don't feel proud. I feel confused, because Victoria Montgomery is walking around free, living her perfect life while you're here. And that's not fair. It's not justice. A couple walked past arm in arm, and I waited until they were out of earshot before continuing. She knows what she did, though. That's something, I guess. She's been doing all this charity work, trying to make up for it, helping other families affected by traffic accidents. It doesn't bring you back, but I don't know. Does it count for anything? Does atonement without accountability mean anything? I lay back on the grass, staring up through the branches of the oak tree at the blue sky beyond. The thing is, I met her daughter, Lily. She's 6. David, almost the same age you were when you used to follow me around everywhere, remember? She has this stuffed rabbit she carries with her, kind of like how you had that ratty old teddy bear you refused to let Mum wash. I smiled at the memory, even as tears ran down my temples into my hair. She trusted me completely, held my hand, fell asleep next to me, asked me to stay until she fell asleep. And I realised if I hurt her mum, I'd be doing to her what Victoria did to me. I'd be taking away her sense of safety in the world. I'd be the villain in her story. A bird landed on David's headstone, tilted its head at me, then flew away. So now they want me to come back, to babysit regularly, and I don't know what to do. Part of me thinks I should stay away, never see them again, try to move on. But another part of me thinks, maybe there's a reason this happened. Maybe I'm supposed to be in Lily's life for some reason I don't understand yet. I sat up, brushing grass from my hair. What would you do, David? If you were here, what would you tell me? But I knew what he'd say. David had always been the peacemaker, the one who tried to see the best in people. When I'd gotten in a fight with my best friend in middle school, he'd been the one to convince me to forgive her. When Dad and I had argued about my college choices, David had helped us understand each other. He would tell me to let go of the hate. He would tell me that holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. He would tell me that the best revenge was living well, being happy, honouring his memory by being the best version of myself. You always were the wise one, I whispered. Even at 14, you were smarter than me. I stayed there for another hour, talking to my brother about everything and nothing. About school, about Mum and Dad, about the weather. Normal things that made me feel connected to him again. When I finally left, I felt something I hadn't felt in 5 years. A tiny bit of peace. I texted Victoria that evening and told her I could do 2 evenings a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. She responded immediately with enthusiasm and gratitude, sending me their schedule and Lily's routine in detail. The following Tuesday, I showed up at the Montgomery house at 5:30 p.m. This time, only Robert was home. Victoria was at a fundraising committee meeting for her Traffic Safety Foundation. He explained without irony. Lily's been talking about you all week, Robert said as he gathered his briefcase and files. You made quite an impression. Lily came running down the stairs, her face lighting up when she saw me. Emma, you came back. Of course I did, I said, kneeling down to her level. I promised, didn't I? She hugged me tightly, and I felt something in my chest both break and mend at the same time. This innocent child had no idea about the complicated web of pain and guilt that connected our families. To her, I was just Emma, the nice babysitter who played with her and made her feel safe. Robert left with instructions to call if needed, and then it was just Lily and me again. What do you want to do today? I asked. Can we bake cookies? Lily's eyes were huge with hope. Mummy usually says we'll do it later, But later never comes because she's always busy. The comment stung more than it should have. Victoria, so busy with her atonement projects that she didn't have time to bake cookies with her daughter. Cookies sound perfect, I said. Let's see what your kitchen has. We spent the next hour making chocolate chip cookies from scratch. Lily stood on a step stool, carefully measuring ingredients with her tongue poking out in concentration. She told me about her day at school, about how her friend Jessica had gotten in trouble for talking during reading time, about how she was learning to do cartwheels in gym class. "Do you have a boyfriend, Emma?" she asked suddenly as she stirred the cookie dough. I laughed. "No, I don't." "Why do you ask?" "Because you're pretty and nice. My mummy says pretty. Nice people always find someone who loves them." "Well, sometimes people are too busy with other things for boyfriends," I said, helping her scoop dough onto the baking sheet. "Like school or work or other stuff." "What other stuff?" How did I explain to a 6-year-old that I'd spent the last 5 years consumed by grief and revenge fantasies? That I'd been too broken to even think about normal things like dating or friendships? "Just grown-up stuff," I said vaguely. "It's complicated." "Grown-ups always say that," Lily sighed dramatically, making me smile. While the cookies baked, we sat at the kitchen table, and Lily showed me her homework, a worksheet about animal habitats. She knew all the answers already, but liked explaining them to me, her voice serious and educational, like a tiny professor. "You're really smart," I told her honestly. She beamed. "Mummy reads to me every night. Well, almost every night, when she's not at meetings." There it was again, that subtle hint of loneliness. Victoria Montgomery, so consumed with atoning for her past sin that she was neglecting her present daughter. The irony wasn't lost on me. When the cookies came out of the oven, we each tried one while they were still warm. Lily got chocolate on her nose, and we both dissolved into giggles. "These are the best cookies ever," she declared seriously. "Better than the store ones Mummy buys." "That's because we made them with love," I said, then immediately felt weird about using the word love in this context. But Lily didn't notice. She just smiled and reached for another cookie. After we cleaned up the kitchen, Lily wanted to show me her room more properly than the brief glimpse I'd gotten last week. We went upstairs and she gave me a tour of all her important possessions. Her collection of rocks, each one is special for a different reason. Her art supplies, I want to be an artist and a veterinarian. And her bookshelf, Mummy says reading is the most important thing. On her nightstand was a framed photo of Victoria, Robert and Lily at what looked like a beach vacation. They were all laughing, windblown and happy, a perfect family moment, frozen in time. "We went to Hawaii last summer," Lily said, following my gaze. "It was the best trip ever. Daddy taught me to swim in the ocean, and Mommy built sandcastles with me." "It sounds wonderful," I said, and meant it. Despite everything, I was glad Lily had those memories. Glad she had a family who loved her, even if they were flawed. "Do you have a favourite picture of your family?" Lily asked. The question caught me off guard. Yes, there's one of me and my brother at a basketball game. He loved basketball. The brother who went to heaven. "Yeah, that one." Lily was quiet for a moment, then said, "I think people we love are always with us, even when they're in heaven." That's what Mummy told me when my goldfish died. The wisdom of children. It was so simple, so pure. And somehow, coming from this innocent 6-year-old, it didn't sound trite or cliché. It sounded true. "I think you're right," I whispered. We spent the rest of the evening reading books together. Lily curled up next to me on her bed, and I read story after story in different voices that made her giggle. When Victoria came home at 8:30, she found us like that. Lily in her pyjamas, both of us surrounded by picture books, mid-story about a dragon who was afraid of the dark. "Well, this looks cosy," Victoria said from the doorway, her smile genuine and warm. "Mummy, Emma does the best dragon voice." Victoria came in and sat on the edge of the bed. "Does she? I'd love to hear it." So I finished the story, doing my best dragon voice, while both Victoria and Lily listened. When I got to the part where the dragon finally conquered his fear, Lily applauded. "That was wonderful," Victoria said, and I could hear the emotion in her voice. Thank you, Emma, for everything. Our eyes met, and for just a second, I saw something in her expression, a deep sadness, a weight she carried, the guilt she lived with every day. And I realized that while my pain was sharp and obvious, hers was different, but perhaps equally heavy. She had to live knowing she'd taken a life and gotten away with it. She had to see her daughter's innocent face and wonder if karma would eventually take Lily away as punishment. That was its own kind of hell. "It's my pleasure," I said, standing up. "Lily's a wonderful kid." After I said goodbye to Lily and headed downstairs with Victoria, she walked me to the door. Before I could leave, she touched my arm gently. "Emma, can I ask you something?" My heart rate spiked. "Of course. I don't know how to say this without sounding strange, but you seem like you're carrying something heavy. And I recognize that look because She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Because I carry heavy things too. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm here. I know I'm just your employer, but I mean it." The irony was so thick I could taste it. Victoria Montgomery offering to help me with my burden, not knowing she was my burden. "Thank you," I managed. "That's very kind." She smiled sadly. "We all need kindness sometimes, especially when we're dealing with pain we can't talk about." As I drove home that night, I thought about her words. Victoria knew she was carrying guilt, but did she know that I knew? Did she suspect anything? Or was she just being genuinely kind? I didn't have answers. All I knew was that this situation was becoming more complicated with each passing day, and I wasn't sure anymore what I wanted the outcome to be. Over the next 6 weeks, I fell into a routine with the Montgomerys. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 5:30 to 9 p.m. I'd arrive, spend time with Lily, and either Victoria or Robert, or both, would come home and we'd have brief, cordial conversations before I left. But something was changing. I was changing. Lily and I had developed our own traditions. Cookie Tuesdays, where we tried new recipes. Story Thursdays, where we'd create elaborate tales together about princesses and dragons and magical creatures. She'd started drawing pictures for me, crayon masterpieces, that I kept in a folder in my apartment. I was getting attached, more than attached. I was beginning to love this little girl, and that terrified me. One Tuesday evening, about 2 months into my regular babysitting, Victoria came home early. I could tell immediately something was wrong. Her eyes were red, her makeup smudged, her usual composure shattered. "I'm sorry," she said, her voice shaky. "I know it's early, I needed to come home." "Is everything okay?" I asked, though clearly it wasn't. Lily was upstairs getting ready for bed, giving us a moment of privacy. Victoria sank onto the couch and put her face in her hands. "I spoke at a victims' family support group tonight," she said quietly. "It's part of the foundation work I do. And there was a mother there whose son died in a hit and run 5 years ago, still unsolved." My blood turned to ice. Was she talking about... She talked about him. About what a good kid he was. About how she still sets a place for him at dinner sometimes, forgetting he's gone. About how the not knowing, not having answers, not having justice is worse than the grief itself. Victoria looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. And I sat there listening to her pain, knowing I caused that same pain, knowing that somewhere out there's a family still waiting for answers I could give them, but don't have the courage to... My heart was pounding so hard, I thought it might burst from my chest. Was she confessing? Did she know I was connected to David? "Victoria, I'm sorry," she interrupted, wiping her eyes. "You don't need to hear this. You're so young and this is so heavy. Sometimes the weight of guilt is so crushing, I don't know how to carry it anymore." I sat down next to her, my mind racing. This was it. This was the moment I could tell her. I could say, "I know what you did. That mother you heard tonight. That's my mother. That boy was my brother." But when I opened my mouth, different words came out. "Whatever you're carrying, maybe the only way to lighten it is to face it. Not through charity work or foundation building, but through actual truth, actual justice." She looked at me with such raw pain that I almost reached out to comfort her. What if the truth destroys everything? What if justice means losing everything you love? What if not facing it means you never truly have the things you love? I countered. What if you're so busy running from the past that you're missing the present? Victoria stared at me for a long moment. You're very wise for someone so young. Oh, I've had to grow up fast, I said, and it wasn't a lie. Lily's voice called from upstairs. Mommy, Emma, I'm ready for my story. Victoria stood up, composing herself quickly. I should go up to her. I've been working too much lately, missing too many bedtimes. Victoria, I said as she headed for the stairs. She turned back. Whatever you've done, whatever guilt you carry, your daughter loves you. Don't let your past steal your time with her. She gave me a watery smile. Thank you, Emma, for understanding more than you should have to. After she went upstairs, I sat alone in the living room, my hand shaking. That had been the closest we'd come to acknowledging the truth without actually saying it. Did she know? Did she suspect? Or was I just one of many guilt-easing projects for her, the sympathetic young babysitter who happened to be a good listener? I didn't go home right away when Robert came back. Instead, I drove to my parents' house, something I rarely did unannounced. My mother answered the door in her bathrobe, surprised but happy to see me. Emma, is everything okay? Can I come in? I need to talk to you and Dad. We sat in the living room where I'd spent my childhood, the same couch where David and I used to fight over the remote, the same coffee table where we'd done homework together. My father was in his armchair, looking older than his years, a glass of whiskey in hand as always these days. I need to tell you both something, I began, about my babysitting job. And I told them everything, about discovering Victoria's identity years ago, about planning revenge, about getting the job with the Montgomerys, about almost poisoning Victoria and how I'd stopped myself, about the weeks I'd spent with Lily, growing attached to her, about tonight's conversation with Victoria. My mother cried quietly. My father's jaw clenched, his knuckles white around his glass. When I finished, the silence was heavy. Finally, my father spoke. Are you still in contact with them? Yes, I babysit twice a week. Why? His voice was rough, decades of smoking evident in every word. Why would you keep going back there? Because of Lily, I said honestly. Because she's innocent, and she needs someone who actually pays attention to her. Because Victoria is so consumed with guilt and atonement work that she's missing her daughter's childhood. And because... I paused, struggling to articulate it. Because being angry at them doesn't hurt them. It only hurts me, and I'm tired of hurting. My mother reached over and took my hand. Your father and I have talked about this woman. About Victoria Montgomery. About what we'd do if we had proof it was her. And, I whispered, and we realised that nothing we could do would bring David back, she said softly. Prison, revenge, public humiliation, none of it would give us our son. It would just be more pain, more families destroyed. But she got away with it, my father said bitterly. She killed our boy and walked away. She didn't walk away, Dad, I said. She's in her own prison. You should see her face when she talks about guilt. She's drowning in it. Good, he spat. Tom, my mother said gently to my father, hate is eating you alive. It's eaten all of us alive for 5 years. Maybe Emma's right. Maybe the only way to heal is to let go. I can't, my father whispered, and for the first time in years I saw him cry. I can't let go of my son. I moved to kneel in front of his chair, taking his hands in mine. You're not letting go of David. You're letting go of the hate. There's a difference. We can honour David by living, by being happy, by being the people he'd want us to be, or we can honour him by being consumed with revenge and anger. Which one would he choose? My father pulled me into a hug, sobbing into my shoulder. My mother joined us, and we stayed there, 3 broken people trying to figure out how to put ourselves back together. The next Thursday, I arrived at the Montgomery house with a plan. Not a plan for revenge or justice or exposure, but a plan for truth. Victoria was home alone with Lily. Robert was working late on his pro bono case, the one about the traffic accident, the irony of which still wasn't lost on me. After Lily was in bed, I asked Victoria if we could talk. She looked surprised but agreed, making us both tea and settling on the couch. "What's on your mind, Emma?" I took a deep breath. This was it, the moment everything could fall apart or come together. "I need to tell you something about why I really took this job." Her face went pale. "What do you mean?" 5 years ago, on March 15th, my 14-year-old brother David was hit by a car while walking home from basketball practice. Hit and run. The car was never officially found, and the driver was never charged. Victoria's teacup clattered against the saucer, her hand shaking. "Emma, I was there," I continued, my voice steady despite my racing heart. "I saw the car, a black Mercedes with a vanity plate. I gave the license plate number to police, and they investigated. They told my family the car had been reported stolen that night and was returned the next day with a minor damage that was being repaired. The owner had an alibi. Case closed." "Oh, God," Victoria whispered, her face completely colourless now. "But I never forgot that plate number. And 2 years ago, I saw it again. In the parking lot of a charity gala, your car, Victoria. Your plate." She stood up abruptly, backing away from me. I can't." "I know it was you," I said quietly. "I've known for 2 years, and I came here planning to hurt you. I got this job specifically to get close to you, to make you suffer the way my family has suffered." Victoria collapsed into a chair, her whole body shaking. "I'm so sorry," she gasped out between sobs. "I'm so sorry. I was driving home from a work dinner, and I'd had a few drinks. Not drunk, but not sober. And I looked down at my phone for just a second, and then there he was, and I hit him, and I panicked. And I drove away, and I've hated myself every single day since." Tears were streaming down my face now too. He was 14 years old. He loved basketball and bad movies and making terrible jokes. He was my best friend. "I know," she sobbed. "I've read everything about him, every article, every obituary. I know he wanted to be an engineer. I know he was an honours student. I know he volunteered at the animal shelter. I know everything about the beautiful boy I killed." "Then why didn't you turn yourself in?" My voice broke. "Why did you let my family suffer without answers?" "Because I'm a coward," she said simply. "Because I have a daughter and a husband and a life, and I told myself that prison wouldn't bring your brother back, that I could do more good out here, helping other families, preventing other accidents. I told myself every possible lie to justify my cowardice." We sat in silence for a long moment, both of us crying. "The foundation," Victoria finally said, "the scholarship fund, the crosswalk installations, the advocacy work, all of it was for David. Every family I've helped in his name, even if they didn't know it. The scholarship is called the David Thompson Memorial Scholarship." I looked up sharply. "What?" I couldn't use it publicly, couldn't explain why without exposing myself. But every check, every campaign, every project, his name is in my private files. I wanted his death to mean something. I wanted some good to come from the worst thing I've ever done. "That doesn't bring him back," I said. "I know," she whispered. "Nothing can bring him back, and nothing can excuse what I did. I killed your brother and drove away. I'm a murderer, a coward, everything you think I am, and worse." I pulled out my phone and opened the recording app. "Tell me exactly what happened that night. Every detail." Her eyes widened in fear. "You're going to the police." "I don't know what I'm going to do," I said honestly. "But I need the truth, all of it, on record." So she told me. Everything. How she'd been at a work dinner celebrating a big case win. How she'd had 3 glasses of wine over 4 hours, enough to be legally able to drive, but not sober. How she'd been texting her assistant about the next day's schedule. How she looked down for 5 seconds and felt the impact. How she'd seen David's body in her rearview mirror and kept driving. How she'd reported the car stolen an hour later. How she'd paid the mechanic to fix the dent and never asked questions. How she'd created an elaborate alibi with Robert's help, he'd been working late and covered for her, claiming they'd been together. Robert knew. All these years, Robert had known and helped her cover it up. When she finished, she looked at me with empty eyes. So, now what? You have my confession, you can take it to police. I'll lose everything, my daughter, my husband, my freedom, but maybe that's what I deserve. I looked at this broken woman sitting across from me and thought about revenge, about justice, about what David would want. I thought I wanted revenge, I said slowly. I thought I wanted to destroy you the way you destroyed my family. But then I met Lily, and I realised that hurting you means hurting her, making her go through what I went through. She deserves better than me, Victoria said. Maybe prison is where I belong. Maybe, I agreed, or maybe there's another way. Victoria looked up confused. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice stronger now. Tomorrow, you're going to contact my parents. You're going to arrange a meeting and you're going to confess everything to them. You're going to beg for their forgiveness, knowing you might not get it. You're going to offer to turn yourself in if that's what they want. Okay, she whispered. And then, I continued, we're going to figure out real justice. Not revenge, not covering things up, but actual accountability and healing. Maybe that means prison. Maybe it means a public confession. Maybe it means something else entirely. But it won't be my decision alone. It'll be my family's decision. And you? Victoria asked. What do you want? I thought about it for a long moment. I want my brother back. But since I can't have that, I want you to live with the truth out in the open. I want Lily to have her mother, but I want you to be honest with her when she's old enough to understand. I want the families you've helped through your foundation to know they were helped in David's name, and I want you to stop running from what you did. Victoria nodded slowly. I can do that. I can try to do that. There's one more thing, I said. I want to keep babysitting Lily. She looked shocked. After everything I've done to you, you'd still want to be around my family? Not for you, I said honestly. For her. Because she's innocent, and she deserves to have people in her life who see her for who she is, not just as your daughter. And because being around her helps me heal, helps me remember that life goes on, that children laugh and grow and need love even when we think the world should stop. Victoria's voice was barely audible. You're a better person than I could ever be. I'm not, I said. I'm just tired. Tired of hating. Tired of planning revenge. Tired of carrying this weight. And I think you're tired too. She nodded, tears flowing freely again. The next day, Victoria called my parents. 3 days later, we all met at my parents' house. Me, my parents, Victoria, and Robert. It was the most painful 5 hours of my life as Victoria confessed everything to my mother and father. My father raged. My mother cried. Robert sat silently, his guilt evident in every line of his face. By the end, my parents had a choice to make. Press charges, pursue justice through the legal system, and likely send both Victoria and Robert to prison for manslaughter and obstruction of justice. Or find another path. They chose another path, not because Victoria deserved mercy, but because, as my mother said, more prison time won't bring David back. More broken families won't heal ours. What we need is truth, accountability, and a way forward. So we created something new. Victoria would continue her foundation work, but she would do it publicly in David's name. She would speak at schools and community groups about the consequences of distracted driving, using her own story, her own crime, as a cautionary tale. She would establish a substantial trust fund for my parents. She would meet with them monthly to discuss David, to answer any questions, to provide the closure they'd been denied for 5 years. And someday, when Lily was old enough to understand, Victoria would tell her daughter the truth about what she'd done and how she tried to make amends. It wasn't perfect justice. Victoria wouldn't go to prison. She wouldn't face the legal consequences she deserved, but she would face something perhaps harder, living every day with the truth exposed, knowing that her daughter would someday know what kind of person her mother really was. As for me, I continued babysitting Lily, watching her grow, seeing her smile, being part of her life. And slowly, over months and years, I found that the hate and anger I'd carried for so long began to lift. I'll never forget David. I'll never stop missing him. And I'll never believe that what Victoria did was okay or forgivable in the traditional sense. But I learned that revenge isn't justice, that hate destroys the person carrying it more than anyone else, and that sometimes healing requires letting go of what we think we deserve in favour of what we actually need. I thought I needed Victoria to suffer, but what I really needed was the truth, accountability, and a way forward. And somehow, in the most unexpected way, babysitting the daughter of the woman who killed my brother became the path to healing I never knew I needed.